My girlfriend hid that she was married with a child. When I confronted her, she said, "You were just a distraction while I built the life I really wanted." So I teamed up with her husband to expose her in court. She ended up losing her house and even her son. My story seems taken from a cheap novel or a sad song. Melissa was, at least to me, the perfect woman. She had an easy smile, the right words, and a way of looking at me that made the rest of the world stop mattering. But there was a detail I did not know, a detail that changed everything. She was married and also had a son. I met her in the most casual way possible, without any planning, as if fate had decided for us to cross paths. It was in a restaurant near my work. That day the place was packed and the service was a disaster. She was at the next table, alone, looking at the menu with annoyance. We ended up laughing at the situation because the waiters were coming and going without serving anyone. There was a moment when our eyes met, and without thinking too much, I told her a joke, that with such bad service the best thing would be to go eat somewhere else together. I expected her to laugh and nothing more, but to my surprise, she accepted. I could not believe it. I was never a heartthrob, nor a guy with that confidence to invite a strange woman out. But Melissa got up, gathered her things, and told me she knew a place nearby. We talked about superficial things, about movies, about places we wanted to visit, about silly anecdotes, but all with a fluency that seemed incredible to me. She told me she was 26 years old, that she worked at a fashion company, that she had taken that day off. I told her about my office, about how boring it was to be in front of the computer all the time. The clock ticked on, and when I realized it, the time I was supposed to return to work had already passed. I made up an excuse to be absent. At that moment, I did not think about the consequences. I just thought I had found someone special and that I had to take that opportunity. Yes, I know. I was not thinking with the right head. After that first encounter, we saw each other again. Everything continued with the same naturalness. After a couple of dates, I proposed that we be a couple. I did not think about it too much. I just blurted it out as it came to me, and she accepted immediately, excited. For me, it was like a stroke of luck, and in those days I felt that life was giving me something I had never had. Our relationship lasted 5 months. It was not easy to see each other frequently because we both had complicated schedules, but when we did meet, it was all worth it. She was always dressed up, always eager to have a good time. I felt lucky, as if I had finally entered a world that until that moment I had only seen from afar. In intimacy, everything was also a whirlwind. Melissa was passionate, affectionate, and daring. Several times she surprised me with lingerie, and once at the movies she whispered to me that she was not wearing underwear and that the dress was the only thing covering her. But as for her personal life, now that I think about it, she did not tell me much. She said she lived with her younger sister of 22 years because they were far from their family. She assured me that she had not had much luck in love, that she had been single for years, that she did not believe in relationships until she met me. I believed everything. I saw no reason to doubt. With me, Melissa presented herself as the perfect woman, without drama, without strange demands, without reproaches. When we were together, it seemed that the only thing she wanted was to have a good time. I, on the other hand, was an open book. I told her where I worked, what time I got off, what I liked to do in my free time. She even picked me up from the office several times. We were at my apartment many times, and on some occasions she even stayed the night, although those were the fewest. She always had an excuse, that her sister should not be left alone, that she was afraid of people wanting me in the house, that she did not want problems with the neighbors. That is why she almost never stayed with me. That was also the reason why she never took me to her house. She said she was not ready to introduce a man to the place where she lived with her sister. I accepted it. Melissa knew how to distract me with caresses, with sweet words, with that way of looking at me that made me forget any doubt. Today, looking at it calmly, I admit there were strange signs, messages answered at odd hours, sudden changes of plans, excuses about work meetings that did not add up, and her constant refusal for me to meet her sister or her house. But at that moment I was so into the relationship, so fascinated with what I was experiencing, that none of that worried me. So time passed until at 5 months everything exploded. It was a Tuesday like any other. I had planned to go out with some friends because Melissa had told me she would be busy and that we would see each other the next day. But as soon as I set foot on the street, a man stood in front of me. He knew my name. That was the first thing that disconcerted me. His brow was furrowed, his lips tight, and although he tried to seem calm, I could see in his face that he was looking for trouble. I did not know him at all. I had never seen him before. However, he knew who I was. He asked me directly if I knew a woman named Melissa. I stared at him trying to play it cool and asked him why he was asking me that question. I wanted to buy time. The man got even angrier. He answered me, almost spitting the words, "That woman is my wife." I felt the floor disappear. My whole world collapsed in a second. The only thing I managed to say was, "Melissa is married." She never said anything about that. With those words, I myself confirmed everything. There was no going back. The man lunged at me, grabbed my shirt tightly, and yelled in my face. "So is it true? You are her lover, you son of a bitch." I tried to break free, but he was out of his mind. Before I could answer, a coworker appeared and asked us what the hell was going on. But Sebastian, as I later learned the man's name was not in the mood to calm down. He shook me with rage while asking me over and over again, "Tell me the truth, you slept with her. Tell me." I managed to break free and took a few steps back. I looked at him properly for the first time. His face was distraught, his eyes filled with something more than anger. But it was not just fury in them, but fear. Fear of hearing what I might tell him. I swallowed and spoke. "I am sorry, man. Melissa never told me she was married. We have been together for 5 months. The man let out a cry that was not of a fight, but of pain. I thought he would lunge at me, but he did not. He turned around and went to sit on a nearby bench. He dropped down with his head down, defeated. My coworker took my arm and asked if I was okay. We started walking away from the place, but I could not stop looking back. There was that man, downcast, with his elbows on his knees, his hands covering his face. He looked destroyed. I could not help but feel empathy for him. Although he was the husband of the woman I was dating, at that moment I did not see him as an enemy. I saw someone deceived, just like me. That image hit me harder than any scream. I told my friend to go on without me. I went back. I stood next to him and did not know what to say. Seriously, what can you say in a situation like that? I was just as deceived as he was, but at that moment I did not have the right words. The only thing I could think of was to say a simple, "I am sorry." The guy raised his head and looked me straight in the eyes. He did not insult me or push me again. He just shook his head with a tired gesture. He opened his mouth as if he was going to speak, but in the end he said nothing. I stood there, uncomfortable, with my hands in my pockets. I do not know why I did it, but I went into a coffee shop a few meters away, ordered 2 hot coffees, and came back. I sat next to him in silence and offered him one. He did not say anything. He just accepted it. We were like that for several minutes, drinking coffee in silence. I did not know if I should leave, if I should give him space, or insist on explaining. In the end, it was he who spoke. "I am Esteban," he told me without looking at me. "I am Melissa's husband of 7 years." I felt a lump in my throat. I did not want to interrupt, and even less to justify myself, so I just listened. What he told me left me completely cold. He said that he and Melissa had been sweethearts since they were young. In fact, they had known each other since they were children because they had grown up in the same neighborhood. According to him, Melissa was the woman who knew him best, the one who was always there for him. He told me that they got married very young, at 19, almost like a teenage madness. But at that moment they were convinced that they wanted to be together for life. He described that not everything was simple, that as a couple they had gone through very tough times at the beginning, but also that they had known how to get through it. Both worked from an early age, and with effort they managed to stabilize themselves. Eventually he got a promotion in the company where he worked, and money stopped being a problem. That is when they started talking about starting a family. I listened without being able to say anything. I felt as if all the picture that Melissa had painted of her life for me was peeling away before my eyes. Every word he said was a slap of reality that reminded me that everything I thought I knew about her was a lie. Esteban continued talking. He told me that 3 years ago they had their son. The child was the best thing that had ever happened to them. But from that moment on he began to notice a change in Melissa. He explained to me that when she got pregnant, she stopped working, and he carried the full weight of supporting them. He got used to having 2 jobs in one, being a provider and trying to be a good husband and father, but he admitted that he felt that had gradually distanced them. Melissa, according to him, became colder. At first he justified it by thinking it was the normal changes due to pregnancy, fatigue, sleepless nights. But after the child grew a little, things did not change. She rejected him every time he tried to get close. She would lock herself up with her cell phone, making excuses that she was exhausted. In the end, Esteban could not even remember the last time they had been intimate. As the months went by, Melissa began to go out more frequently. She would tell him she was going to visit her sister, that she would spend the night at her parents' house, or that she needed a distraction because she felt trapped. She would take advantage of the very moments when he tried to organize something for the family to disappear. I listened in silence and understood immediately. All those gaps of time were the ones she used to see me. Esteban confessed to me that his desperation had led him to check her cell phone one night. He found my messages, but incomplete, as if she carefully deleted them. He was barely able to retrieve some fragments, but they were enough for him to realize there was someone else. He did not want to confront her immediately. He wanted to be sure, and that is why he had been waiting for me outside the office. He told me all of that afternoon, first on the bench, and then we walked together to a bar where he opened up more. When he fell silent, I took a deep breath and told him my version. How I had met Melissa in that restaurant, how she had painted a life for me where she lived alone with her sister, how she had insisted that she had been single for years. I told him that she never told me about a son. She never told me she was married. That with me she had presented herself as a different person. Esteban listened to me with his gaze fixed on his glass of beer. When I finished, he sighed and told me what worried him the most. "Do you know what the worst part is?" he said. "The divorce. She is going to get my son and probably the house too. I will be left on the side working just to support her." He said it with such resignation that it hurt me to hear it. It was then that for the first time I was filled with rage. I had also been betrayed by Melissa. I was also a victim, and I was just as angry as he was. "It does not have to be that way," I replied. "If you have clear proof that she cheated on you, and if we can show that she is not good for your son, everything can change. You do not have to lose everything." He looked at me surprised, as if he did not expect me to take his side. But I was serious. She had used me just like she used him, and I was not willing to stand by idly. In the end, we stayed a little longer talking about what we could do. The most complicated thing after that was staying away from Melissa without her suspecting anything. I stalled her for a couple of days. She seemed resentful, but I promised we would see each other on the weekend. Meanwhile, Esteban was also making moves. He told Melissa that he planned to spend the night at his parents' house with the child that weekend and asked if she also wanted to go. It was the perfect excuse for the house to be free. I, for my part, started to pressure her. I insisted that I did not know her house, that after so many months of a relationship, it was time to take that step. I told her I wanted to meet her sister, that there was no reason to keep hiding me. In the end, Melissa connected both stories. She told Esteban that she wanted to stay home to rest, and she told me that her sister would be camping that weekend, that she would have the house to herself, and that we could finally see each other there. She presented it as a gesture of trust, as if she were opening the door to her private life for me, when in reality, it was just another lie. We agreed that I would go on Saturday night. Esteban, for his part, took the child to his parents' house. The idea was that he would later return and discover us. I arrived at Melissa's house at 8 in the evening, and as soon as I crossed the door, I had no time for anything. She appeared in lingerie and threw herself at me, hugging me tightly and kissing me. "You are bad," she told me. "You have had me abandoned." Her way of speaking seemed rehearsed, as if she wanted me to forget all my doubts. I tried to distract her. I told her the house was nice, but Melissa had no intention of answering. She used the same strategy as always, sex to silence questions. The only thing I could do to not reject her abruptly was to go into the bathroom. I closed the door while she shouted obscene things from outside, saying she was in heat, that she was waiting for me naked. She banged on the door, insisted, and I just thought that we needed to end this as soon as possible. I sent an urgent message to Esteban. I came out of the bathroom with my stomach in knots. At that point, I just felt disgust for her, for me, for the whole situation, but I had to keep up the charade until Esteban arrived. I managed to convince her to do an erotic dance for me. I told her I wanted to relax, that I wanted her to surprise me. She, believing she had me trapped, accepted delightedly. I put on loud music to cover any noise. I took off my clothes and lay down on the bed, left only in my underwear. Melissa, completely naked, began to dance in front of me, moving with confidence, convinced that she had me under control. It was at that moment that Esteban entered the room. He was holding his cell phone in his hand, Recording. I remained still, looking at him like an idiot while Melissa continued to dance without noticing his presence. A few seconds passed until she turned her head and saw him. Then she let out a piercing scream. I did not have to pretend to be scared. I jumped up, trying to get dressed in a hurry while Esteban began to shout. His fury was no longer with me, but with her. The insults were mixed with the sobs of Melissa, who was trying to cover her body with a sheet. Esteban dragged me out of the room. He pulled me by the arm with more force than necessary, but I do not blame him. I deserved it in a way for having been a part, albeit deceived, of all that. He kicked me out of the house and threw me one last comment. We will talk later. That night I adopted my role as a victim. I filled the phone with messages insulting Melissa, complaining that she had cheated on me, that she had used me, that she had played with me. A couple of days later, she responded. She said that I had misunderstood, that that man was her ex-husband, that they were separated, that she could explain everything to me if we met. But I did not answer her anymore. Every time she tried to call me, I ignored her. Eventually, Esteban contacted me. He explained that they might need me as a witness in the trial for the custody of his son. It was something we had already talked about in the bar that first afternoon. I accepted. I wanted her to pay for everything she had done. On the day of the trial, when Melissa saw me enter the room, her world came crashing down. Her face changed immediately. I sat where I was supposed to and began to tell in full detail the relationship I had had with her. I exaggerated. Of course I did. I said that Melissa never told me about a son, that she sought me out at any time of the day, that many times we met in the afternoon to sleep together, and that she would stay with me for hours on end. I said it all calmly, as if I were remembering it from memory. And every date I mentioned coincided with times when she said she was taking care of the child. It was enough to leave open the possibility that for being with me, she had left her young son alone. She screamed that it was a lie, that she had never left her son alone, but what I was saying had too much truth mixed with lies and nobody believed her. When I left, Melissa insulted me, shouting. I did not answer her. Hours later, Esteban called me for the last time. He had won. Not only did he get custody of his son, but also the house as the main asset to raise the little one. Melissa had been left devastated. Be careful, Esteban told me. She might come looking for you. And he was not wrong. Just a few days later, Melissa appeared at the door of my apartment with a suitcase in her hand. She looked at me as if she expected me to take her in, as if I had an obligation to give her a roof over her head. But I did not give her a second to start her victim act. As soon as I saw her, I confronted her. I accused her of being a liar, of having played with me, of cheating on her husband, of denying her own son. I said it out loud, with rage, so much so that the neighbors started to come out to see what was happening. Melissa tried to enter my apartment, but I did not let her. I yelled at her that I did not want to know anything more about a woman like her, that she should never come looking for me again. She left crying, insulting me. I closed the door with a relief that I do not know how to explain. Before anyone asks, no, Esteban and I are not friends. We have not even spoken again. And that is fine like that. I learned my lesson the hard way. I learned to be careful who I trust, and above all to stop thinking with my other head.